Welcome to the official YouTube channel for the Colin Cowherd podcast. Go on, hit the subscribe button. There you go, right down there. If you want to be among the first to hear my weekly takes, NFL, college football, more, right there. All right, former NFL scout John Middlekauff. A buddy of mine called me today, asked how I was doing. I said I had a podcast with John Middlekauff. He said, that guy works, man. That guy is constantly working. And I said, well, I haven't talked to him in a month, so now's a good time. You know, I had Denny Parkins on, a real talented kid from Chicago, and I said, I think that Bears are going to be really good. I think the division offensively is a really good division with really good coaching and really good O-lines. I said, the only thing that'll screw it up is a distraction, and then they get hard knocks. I thought, oh, God. All these couples that have cameras in their houses, they all get divorced. You know, it's the end of times. I guess in the league, nobody wants it. How are people now used to it? Your sources, are they used to it kind of now?
I said this on the podcast last week. Forever, right? You know, especially when the series started, it was pretty intrusive. Humans weren't used to being followed around by cameras in 2002, right? Now, everywhere you go, someone has a camera phone out talking to themselves. I actually think these guys are pretty numb to it. Think how long Caleb Williams has been used to cameras pointed at him. Press conferences, the way his life is, podcasts, you name it. I think it's less intrusive now than ever because of how numb these guys are to cameras. Now, I think some of the hoopla around it is not ideal. But let's face it, Colin, the authenticity of the mid-2000s, you remember when you would have the inside of the coaches and GMs talking about cutting players and this guy sucks, and this, we don't get that anymore. So that got thrown out. Really, I've said Hard Knocks isn't for me anymore. It just really isn't.
Right.
I think it's a pretty watered-down version, but I get it. It's popular. But I don't think it phases the player specifically. Maybe the coaches, it can be a little unnerving having a camera look at you, knowing that, but you get to control what comes out, right? The teams have final cut. It's like state-run media. So I don't think it's a big deal at all anymore.
I think there's two stories in the NFL that are real obvious ones. One of them being, Matt Eberflus. And, the downside to even if you have a good defensive coach, they generally don't have as good a connections to offensive coordinators as a McVay, as a Shanahan, and Andy Reid, Sean Payton. Those guys are pretty dialed in. So that's the first thing. The second thing is if you do hit on a really good offensive coordinator and he's good, Ben Johnson's an outlier. They take gigs and leave in 2 years, and then you have to hit another one. Sean McDermott hit on Brian Daboll. He didn't have success with the next hires. And that's very common among defensive coaches. I mean, Mike Tomlin's hit on some, missed on some badly. Pete Carroll, same thing. So I when I look at Eberflus, I don't think he's a bad coach. I always say if you can show me that you know your side of the ball. Well, the Bears defense in the last 7-8 weeks was really good. They have a good corner, Montez Sweat, but they don't have great personnel up front. So I'm interested. I think Eberflus changed his look.
He got a stylist, kind of colored his hair.
He understands it's a big city, a lot of people watching. I don't want to look like a frumpy old defensive coach. If you had to wager, he gets through the year, kind of where do you land on Eberflus?
Yeah, I'm not as confident as some that they're going to make the playoffs. I think they could be good and win 8-9 games and miss. I mean, their division's a mother. I mean, Detroit's bringing everyone back, including the coaches. I think you'd be crazy to not be high on Green Bay if that quarterback continues to play like this. Their new defensive coordinator, Jeff Hafley. So to me, if they miss the playoffs, you could argue it's unfair. Eberflus should get 2 years to kind of show what he can do with this young team, but that's not the way it's going to work, right? If they go what would it be, 8-9 or 9-8 and miss, I could just see because the pressure and the hype on this team. But I'm not as confident they're going to be a playoff team. And a big reason is because their division. Hell, if Minnesota's the worst team in your division, I mean, that's not an easy team to play, right? So they got an excellent coach. They got a lot of firepower. And I understand the pushback would be, well, the Bears could have easily beat the Detroit Lions multiple times last year. I'm not saying they're bad. It's just, I think the hype on the quarterback, big picture, totally behind it. He can be a high-end player. Most guys don't come into the league and look like CJ Stroud, Right. I mean, it's usually there are some growing pains, especially because the transition that he's going to have the way he played last year in college is not going to translate. They're not going to have him do that in theory. So, and if he gets some of those kind of hero ball habits, you're playing NFL players. You're not playing Arizona anymore, and they were struggling to beat Arizona last year. Now the Bears defense is better offensively. They have
Yeah.
firepower, but like you said, I think the pressure on this coach. You don't make the playoffs, you could have a really successful year, right? And you could still get fired.
Yeah, I think one, even the good quarterbacks, Peyton Manning, Andrew Luck, threw a lot of picks early. That's the reality of it. I think the second thing, the one thing that I think Caleb gets a break, there's not really a great pass rush in that division. In fact, the Bears at times didn't have a great one, but Montez Sweat is great. Packers have been looking for a great pass rush for a
Yeah.
decade. Minnesota upgraded on some B guys, not A guys. Detroit, Hutchison's excellent, about 11 sacks last year, but their corners are weak. There's not a dominating defense in this division. It's offensive coaches, so I do think he's going to come in. I mean, if you head to the AFC North and you're getting Myles Garrett and the Ravens culture, that's a whole different ball game. I've said this. Justin Fields won 7. My guess is Chicago wins 8, but looks
That's what
significantly
I'm saying.
better.
And there's a chance he could have a really good rookie season and be the third best
Yeah,
quarterback in his own division. If Jared Goff replicates what he's been doing the last couple of years, he's going to be a Pro Bowl level guy. Jordan Love, there's a question mark there. We have an 8-game sample size of high level. But if he carries that over, there's a decent chance Caleb Williams could throw 24 touchdowns and 12 picks. We all view him like a
yep,
transcendent or the trajectory's pointing high and go, he was the third best quarterback in his division, and they're the third place team in the division. They missed the playoffs because there's not unlimited amount of spots, right? The Niners, the Rams, the Lions, the Packers. You start doing the math. Atlanta should be better. The Saints were 9-8 last year, and they had a terrible offense. Now they bring Kubiak's kid. The Eagles are going to be good. I mean, the Cowboys, even if they take a step back from 12, they'll be in that 8-9 range. So it's just difficult.
yeah. Well, if sports fans don't like to be wrong, and there's a lot of people who are proven wrong on Justin Fields, so just get ready for it. You have to watch things. You can't your life can't be just about the result. You have to contextualize everything. I don't think there's any question Caleb Williams is
Oh,
several notches better than Justin Fields, like several notches better. I mean, if you read the writing on the wall, and we both have enough sources. I mean, Caleb's not going to have problems finding open receivers. That was a real issue for Justin. There was like Zach Wilson, there were guys all over the field open. He just couldn't find them. So people are going to want to be right, the Justin Fields fans. But I think the league spoke when he went for a 6th-round pick. And I think very quickly you're going to see that Caleb's just different.
for sure. And to me,
So,
the offensive weaponry that they have for him, we've talked about this before. It's a
yeah.
pretty easy landing zone for a young quarterback with that many wide receivers.